Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary is out, but don't worry, we have got somebody great here who you will learn to talk about watchOS 9. It's what you can expect in the next version of watchOS and the magic you will have on your Apple Watch. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 607, recorded Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. What to expect from watchOS 9. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/iOS Today. It is time for iOS Today. This is the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePod OS, iPad OS. Did I say? Yeah, I said tvOS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer. We love to talk about them here on iOS Today. And today we're going to be focusing mainly on watchOS 9. Now, you may remember that Rosemary Orchard mentioned she was going to be out this week, but don't worry, I have a fantastic guest joining us today. It is YouTuber extraordinaire and iPad power user. It's Christopher Lawley. Welcome to the show, Christopher.
Thank you for having me on. I am no Rosemary Orchard. Those are shoes I definitely can't fill, but I am happy to be here and try my best.
I was talking to David Sparks at WWDC, and he and I both came to the realization together, because we both host shows with Rosemary Orchard, that there's truly no one who can fill the shoes of Rosemary Orchard. She is one above the rest.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But I am so glad to get you here today to talk about watchOS. And, you know, I mean, can we just switch back to that video? Look at how good, like, the background is amazing. The video looks great. I mean, you look great. You sound great. I'm so excited.
I figured as like somebody that does video stuff, I needed to bring my A game to it. So, you know, I got the nice light up, made sure the angle's good, got good lighting. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure everything, you know, was good.
Well, it absolutely is. So let's kick things off. We talked, I guess it's been 2 weeks ago now, Rosemary and I, about the different features that were announced at WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. And there was a lot. So we weren't able to cover everything. And one of the things that we weren't able to cover was watchOS, the features that are coming in the next version of watchOS, dubbed watchOS 9. This, of course, is the operating system for the Apple Watch, Apple's very popular wearable. And there are quite a few new features that folks are going to be, I think, excited about. And what's interesting to me is there was just not too long ago a study done on, this was like a sales study, not a scientific study, but a sales study done on where people are purchasing, like who is purchasing wearables and in what categories they're purchasing wearables. And the Apple Watch is far and away a standout competitor in the space. But one place where it doesn't stand out is in the market for very high quality fitness wearables. And Garmin is actually the one that leads the market there, because Garmin, isn't that interesting? Garmin has a lot of features that are tied to runners in particular, and to folks who are kind of trying to keep track of their logging as they're running, that kind of thing. And so I feel like watchOS 9 first is meant to address that market, and it kicks things off with Workout. Now, before we get into the new features that come with Workout, I'm curious, Christopher, I think you have an Apple Watch.
Yes.
If you do, how do you use your Apple Watch? What are the main features that you use your Apple Watch for?
It's not advisable to run a beta, especially beta 1 on any device. But if somebody happened to be sitting in this very chair right now wearing an Apple Watch, they might be running beta 1 of watchOS 9 on it. Yeah, but I use my Apple Watch primarily as for workouts and measurement and all those health sensors. I'm diabetic, and for me, keeping track of all, like making sure I have, I'm moving around, I'm exercising, I'm not, sitting in this chair working all day is really important. So that's where the Apple Watch is really important to me. I also use it as like an input method for when it comes to tasks and reminders. I have some shortcuts that I run from this watch that allow me to quickly add a note or a reminder to my associated task manager notes app. And so it's just kind of like a quick entry place for me to just kind of get what's ever in my head when I'm out and about or wherever, just out of my head and put it somewhere so I don't forget about it, because I forget everything. So I need to constantly write things down. So between workouts and just entry stuff, that's kind of where my Apple Watch lives.
All right. Yeah. I kind of fit into that same bubble. I maybe don't use as many of the workout features as are available, but it is definitely a good reminder for me, a health reminder in particular, and a way for me to kind of keep track of all of those things. I'm all about the quantified self, and so having that information available on my wrist is really nice. So let's get into some of the new stuff that's available in Workout. First, there are going to be some new workout views. Again, this is for watchOS 9. Apple will be releasing public betas of the different operating systems in July, is what they said originally. We'll see if that still holds true. It's sometimes not the case that watchOS is part of that, but they have orchestrated a way for folks to be able to replace the operating system on their watch without needing to send it into to Apple itself to be able to fix that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more encouragement even for public beta on the watch. But into the features now for sure. There are, when you're using the workout features on the Apple Watch, you can use the digital crown to kind of cycle through some of the new metrics that are available. So you've got your normal metrics that or the typical metrics that you're used to, like activity rings, which I know a lot of us are very fond of, and a way to kind of gamify our activity. But now there's heart rate zones, there's power, there's elevation. So starting with heart rate zones, this is a way to keep track of your heart rate and give you an understanding of kind of how your heart rate is responding to the workout that you're doing. And what I love about this, Christopher, is that it is a personalized experience, because I actually have a pretty high resting heart rate. And so when I am working out, my resting heart rate is already high. So then, of course, my heart rate is a lot higher as it goes kind of up the track. And so knowing that these zones are personalized to me, that my zone 2 is different from another person's zone 2, is good, because that means that, we're not all kind of working in the same bubble, and then really what my zone 2 is should be a zone 3 or vice versa. I think that's good that these are personalized. Do you use your Apple Watch for heart rate tracking in general? And have you kind of paid attention to those alerts and whatnot that have come up before?
Yeah. A few years ago, I wasn't in the most healthy spot, so I was getting those high heart rate alerts all the time, and that's what kind of got me to be like, hey, I need to like get on top of this. So those high heart rate alerts were really key, but I also never really knew what to do with like resting heart rate data. Like I didn't like, oh, is 70 beats per minute good or when you're like resting, or is 130 good when you're working out, or what? So I really like the idea of these zones, that they're just kind of like visual, like, hey, you're in zone 3 and you're coming down from a workout or something like that. And that way you can kind of like understand what that group, like that heart rate range does for you. I've only done one workout with watchOS 9 so far, so I haven't like really gotten to test everything. So I'm kind of curious to see how that all works out with me.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of other features, including the ability to customize your workouts, set that kind of up. And what I think is an interesting new feature, I got to tell you, it did make me feel a little bit self-conscious. The ability to understand not only your pacing, but also your stride. So running form, that's what it was called. These running form metrics, they were showing sort of like the vertical oscillation, ground contact time, stride length. And it just made me go, oh my God, have I been running wrong this whole time?
I'm honestly afraid to try that. I feel the same way. Like I'm not a runner by any means. I do it just for the cardio, but I hate every second of it. So I'm genuinely afraid to try that and like see what it comes back with.
Yeah, it's going to tell me you are moving your hips up and down too much as you're running. And I don't want to hear that. I don't know. But exactly. I know that, again, I don't think that this is for the everyday runner. This is a person who is running and wants to improve upon their run. They're already at the peak. How do you get further? How do you get farther? And that's where these runners in the past have turned to Garmin as their fitness tracker. And I think that Apple hopes that they will turn to the Apple Watch as the fitness tracker. There's also running power. It is a sort of nebulous measurement of your running, and it helps you to kind of figure out what running power you have. Again, this it's a nebulous measurement. It says an instantaneous measure of your effort. It helps you stay at a level you can sustain. So the idea is like all of the exertion that you're putting into it is a measurement of the power that you're applying, and that way you can sort of trick your brain or convince your brain like, hey, I want to push my running power further, or I want to lay back as we're coming around this curve, that kind of thing. Also, for folks who swim, bike, and run, wow, good for you in the first place, but there will be an ability to switch between those different switch between those different fitness types. So you will be able to do your magical triathlon stuff without having to kind of switch those workouts on your Apple Watch. So some more automatic features that I think folks are going to like and be able to kick off. Have you ever used your Apple Watch in swimming situations or in any water situations?
So I used to be a competitive swimmer long time ago, but when I was kind of getting back into exercising, I figured I'd give that a shot. And it's really cool just like being able to jump in the pool and not having to worry about like this thing's going to get ruined and just going for a swim. The whole triathlon like thing that they added, the transition between, hey, go for a run, go for a bike ride, and go for a swim. That's awesome for the people that do it. You will never see me do it.
Yeah, I think it's great that, again, those features are there for those elite power athletes who are looking for a wearable that they can use in those situations. So that's fantastic. The last thing for fitness or for workout stuff is an enhanced summary. So it just gives you, both on the Apple Watch and on your iPhone, actually, more information about what your workout has been like, what you have been able to achieve there. So again, a nice set of features that's available for you to be able to make sure that you're running or walking or swimming or doing whatever it is that you want to do in the way that you want to do it. So pretty cool new workout features available and worth checking out. Now, moving right along, the next set of features is one that I'm pretty excited about. You mentioned being a person who is running the beta on a watch on your wrist. I'm also running a beta on the watch on my wrist. And most of the reason why is because of this a couple of new features here, but I have for the longest recommended the app called DUE, D-U-E.
Same.
Right. Isn't it great?
For the same thing. It's perfect for this. It is the perfect app for this.
So this is medication tracking. Basically, if you have a medication that you need to take every day, or even, a couple of times a week, or vitamins that you take every day, I have a problem with remembering to take those medications. And sometimes I do take them, but then I forget if I did take them when I was supposed to. So the way that I've dealt with that up to this point is by using the app called DUE, where it will remind me, hey, you need to do this thing. And then if I don't do it immediately, it reminds me again and again and again and again.
Yep.
So I've talked plenty about Do. What Apple is bringing to watchOS 9 and actually to iOS as well is a whole new set of features for medications. It's going to allow you to track your medications. So you will get reminders so that you take your medication and be able to log those medications that you've taken at a given time. On top of that, there are some features in iOS, including the ability to look at drug interactions, some non-medical explanations of what medications you're taking and what they are meant to do, side effect information, all sorts of stuff that's available in these two areas. But the logging and reminders are really great because on top of that, you can scan in your medications using the bottle. I've tried out these different features. I'm curious to hear if you've used this yet. For me, as I've been using it, I am still, of course, running Do alongside it because Do is I can trust Do. Do has worked forever and it continues to work. So I have that going, but I've been doing this to just test it out. And I will say that there's a bit more friction to this experience and some weirdness. And of course, this is where, if this were a developer-focused show, we would be making jokes about how we need to submit feedback, blah, 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 blah. That's in the works for sure. There is some feedback that I want to submit about this, but it's just not quite there in terms of the ease that I've had with Do. So tell me about your experience if you have been using this.
I have, and it's similar to yours. So you have to basically enter all the medication you're taking, and you set up what times you're supposed to take it and stuff like that. So I have two medications I take, once in the morning and then once in the evening. And so you got to enter those, and it's fine, but here the thing is I've been taking that medication long enough to know, like, hey, this is the stuff I take in the morning, this is the stuff I take in the evening. Like, I don't have to, like, I know what it is, so I don't need the health app to tell me. So, like, having to manually enter it, really all I want from the health app is, like, hey, let me set a reminder to tell me to take my meds. I don't necessarily need all that extra stuff, and that's where I kind of think Do still wins out, is I just have a reminder that pops up at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. that says take meds. And I know because I have the little med thing that everyone's got that's Sunday through Monday or whatever it is.
The pill box.
The pill box, yeah. And I just, fill that up Sunday morning and I just go and grab those. So it is a little more friction, like you said. I'm also like you, I'm running them both side by side. So we'll see. I've only been running watchOS 9 for a few days now. So we'll see. Maybe it shapes out a little bit more in future betas and stuff. So we'll kind of see how it shakes out. But for right now, I think, like, if I just had to pick one or the other, I would just stick with Do, because I've already paid for it. So at this point, but I guess it goes without saying the med part in the health app is free. So you don't have to pay for it.
Yes, so I'm right there with you. It's because Do has worked so well for me so far. The reason why I ended up wanting to log all of these is because I like the interaction checker that's built in. I like the idea that it can track, vitamins and stuff like that. And then I want all of that information in one place because Apple has over time added different features, like in your health information, you can put in medications that will affect heart rate. And then the Apple Watch is aware of that and will change how it alerts you for high or low heart rate notifications. So I take a beta blocker, not regularly, but as needed, because in the past I ended up in the hospital for it was a whole thing with it was ended up being gluten intolerance, but what led up to that was a whole bunch of different issues that had to do with heart rhythm and blah 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 blah. And so occasionally I will have some cardiac anxiety, basically, that takes place based in that. And so the beta blocker is helpful in those situations. And so occasionally my low heart rate is not what it would be without that medication. And so by the Apple Watch knowing that, it can change when it does or does not notify. And so what I'm hopeful for is a future where Apple is even more mindful about the other medications that you might take and how those change things. Because, for example, that beta blocker, there have been a number of studies that show that it will raise blood glucose level. Even though it's a medicine that acts on heart rhythm, it does have an impact on blood glucose level. So for you, that would be something that you would need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Knowing that, like if Apple Health could know that in general and be able to apply that, then if you had a glucose tracker, for example, that was tied to Apple Health, and it's like, oh, normally you'd be at 130 or something, but right now you're at 150. That's because you took Inderall this morning or something like that. That's why I'm logging all of these things now, so I have that history in there, so that as more features come out, it's there. So that's kind of what's keeping me going with this. It's not so much just the momentary reminders of medication logging.
That's very smart. Yeah, I didn't even think about it like that, but that is smart. And the other nice thing too is logging all that medication. So if something happened to you, you're in a car accident, knocked unconscious, something terrible happened, and you go and they take you to the hospital, they can check that medical ID on the iPhone and they can see what medication you're taking. So that would actually be really important. So yeah, those are all really good points.
All right, let's move along to one of my favorite things in general. I am and a lot of people on iOS Today who watch iOS Today know this, I'm a huge sleep science nerd. I at one point was doing a podcast on sleep, and I had a subscription to the journal Sleep, reading all sorts of different studies from there. I love the science of sleep. And so I was pumped when Apple announced that sleep for the Apple Watch was going to get a lot better. I will admit that I do not use my Apple Watch for sleep tracking because I have an 8 Sleep mattress, who 8 Sleep has been a sponsor on the network in the past. So there's a heads up there, as well as a Beautyrest sleep tracker. And those two things are these sort of passive methods of tracking your sleep, where when you lay down, it knows you're laying down. It knows all of the stuff to kind of monitor when you're awake, when you're asleep, and all that magic. So I have not had to wear an Apple Watch on my wrist to be able to track those things. But I was super pumped to see that Apple is getting a little bit more in detail with its sleep tracking. First is with sleep stages. So there's REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep. There's a deep sleep, which is sort of the bottom stage of sleep. And then Apple calls the others core. Essentially, it's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. There's REM, and then there's awake. So the way that your sleep cycle works is, obviously you start out awake, and you fall down into stage 1 sleep, you fall down into stage 2 sleep, you fall down into stage 3 sleep, you go back up to stage 2, stage 1, and then at that point, your body makes a decision. Are we going to stay asleep, or are we going to wake up? And typically you stay asleep, so then you hop up to REM, which is rapid eye movement sleep. And a lot of folks think REM is actually below deep sleep. No. It's all the way at the top. It's the most like being awake that you can possibly be while still being asleep. And then you fall back down. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 2, stage 1, REM, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, up and down until you eventually wake up. Up to this point, Apple is more tracked basically, I'm awake or I'm asleep. And when I'm asleep, here's my respiration, here's my heart rate, yada, yada, yada. And oxygen saturation. Now, because it's got plenty of data, feels comfortable being able to kind of break those stages of sleep out a little bit more and determine what is what, so that you can get an understanding of how much sleep you're getting that's deep, how much is core, how much is REM, and how much is, you being awake before you fall asleep. This is fantastic. I love too that then you can start to look at the trends of your sleep over time and get a better understanding of how other things might be impacting your sleep based on when your caffeine intake was, if you worked out that day, all those sorts of things. So are you a sleep tracker kind of person, or do you prefer to sort of leave it up to just keeping your eyes off of it and hoping that sleep goes well?
I've tried doing the sleep tracking thing, but I just can't fall asleep with the Apple Watch on. It doesn't matter which watch band I use. I just cannot fall asleep with any jewelry or anything on it. I just find it uncomfortable. And then the thing in the past that's always prevented me from using Apple sleep tracking is it was based on the sleep focus or the sleep mode, or the the sleep mode. And it wasn't like, hey, if I laid down to take a nap at 1 p.m., which I never do, I would never lay down at 1 p.m. to take a nap. Totally do. It wouldn't track that. So does the new version do the auto sleep tracking?
That is, it is an auto sleep tracker that will not have to make you say, oh, I'm going to sleep now, which has always been the problem with those sleep trackers in the past, right? Yeah. I don't want to have to think about when. That's why I've always used the bed style trackers rather than one for my phone or something like that. Don't make me remember to do it, because I will not remember to do it. I will forget. Or I will, there's something about just having to say that then makes it harder for me to fall asleep too.
Exactly. It's like now I'm like having to do this another thing for prep, and auto sleep tracker. Maybe I will give it another shot. Maybe I'll go. I think I had the best luck with the Nike Apple Watch bands, the one with the holes in them, because they just breathed a little more. Maybe I'll put that one back on and give it another shot. But just in the past, I just was not able to fall asleep. Or maybe I'll get one of those bed trackers like you have, because that actually sounds like that would work for me.
That ends up being what I recommend to most people, because it also reduces the anxiety that a person has about, like, what about when I wake up in the morning? Is my Apple Watch going to have enough battery for the day, et cetera, et cetera? I think that a bed tracker is so much better. And I found can be far more accurate because it is not also trying to do 100 other things. It is a very focused device that is just set on trying to make sure that it's tracking your sleep. All right, let's move on to watch faces here. Actually, no. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will talk about watch faces when we come back from the break, because there are some fun new watch faces to talk about. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about Wealthfront, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Look, stock trading can be a wild ride, but the thrill of risking it all while fun is best enjoyed in moderation. Kind of like casino gambling or eating questionable street food. If you're playing the market, I hope for your sake that you're stashing some safer money in a place like Wealthfront. You might think that day trading stocks is the secret to investing success, but Wealthfront has a ton of data to show that time in the market almost always beats timing the market. Their globally diversified portfolios automatically optimize to hit the goals you set and the risk level you choose, and also to get you automatic tax breaks that can boost your return even when the market dips. It has a term, it's called tax loss harvesting, and Wealthfront actually invented the software. You can also personalize your portfolio with a selection of funds handpicked by Wealthfront's financial experts. Categories include social responsibility, clean energy, and cryptocurrency. Wealthfront is trusted with more than $27 billion in assets, helping nearly 500,000 people build their wealth, and Investopedia named them their best robo-advisor for 2022. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/iOS today. That's wealthfront.com/iOS today to start building your wealth. Again, wealthfront.com/iOS today and get started today. Thanks so much to Wealthfront for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. We are back to the show. Joining us is Christopher Lawley as we talk about what we can expect from watchOS 9, which will hit Apple Watches later this year, but of course is in testing. And we talked about some cool features to kick it off. But Christopher, why don't you tell us about some new watch faces we can expect in watchOS 9?
So the first one is Metropolitan, and it's one of my favorites. It's a circular watch face that looks more like a traditional watch face, but what's really cool is you can use the digital crown and you can scroll it back and forth, so the numbers kind of change the typography a little bit, so you can kind of make it look a little different the way you want it. And it has the edge complications on it too, so it has 4 complications out to the side. I'm a little boring when it comes to watch faces. I like the ones that look more like traditional watches and have lots of complications, so I can have lots of data. I'm a nerd. I love data. So I like to have all that glanceable. Then there's Playtime, which was, I forget the artist's name. I didn't write it down. I'm sorry, but it was designed by an artist for Apple. And it's one of those fun watch faces like the Mickey and Woody ones and stuff. And it's great if that's the kind of thing you like.
If that's your thing.
If that's your thing. I mean, look, if I'm being honest, I don't get them. Like, I really don't. Because, like, you have a computer on your wrist and, like have the data, but again, I'm a nerd, so that's just me. Astronomy is another really interesting one that I put it in the category of like those fun watch faces, but I would actually use this one because I like space. Again, a nerd. So I like space. And like you can kind of it like does the thing that like a lot of the portrait complications do where it like covers up or partially covers up the time so you get that depth look. And I think it's a really neat looking watch face. Then there's Lunar. Lunar's a new one, and it kind of shows. I don't fully get this one. It shows the lunar calendar, but I think there was something else, and I forget what it was off the top of my head. Do you remember, Micah?
So with the lunar watch face, it is all about the lunar calendar, and there are just 3 different versions. You can check out the Chinese lunar calendar, the Hebrew lunar calendar, and the Islamic lunar calendar.
That's what it is. I couldn't remember. There was the 3 different versions, but yeah, I think those are all the new ones. And then there's some previous ones that got updated. Like I think Utility got updated to support the new I say new, but years old complications now, and it's just kind of been lingering. The dog and cat portrait face one I think is actually going to be kind of cool. So. The portrait photo watch face was one that I've seen a lot of people use, but it only worked with people up until now. So if you take a portrait photo of your dog or your cat, it'll do the depth separation so you can have your animal up front, then kind of like the clock, the time, and then it has the blurry background behind it. So it gives it that nice depth of field look. So that's kind of cool. And then
it's got some kind of cool tinting that you can do. So with that background separation, you can have the dog or the cat or the person with the portrait face stick out a little bit more. And then you can change the color of the background with the depth effect so that it is maybe more washed out, and then it makes that photo really pop. So they're doing a lot of depthy, fun stuff. We talked about the features that are available on the iPhone that have to do with that depth effect. Mm-hmm. So not surprised to see that kind of come to the Apple Watch in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be a really cool one, especially since people love their animals. Who doesn't love a dog? Oh, and I guess there's cats, but I mean, dogs. I just made like half
I'm right
your
there
audience
with you.
mad.
Look, they know. So Rosemary's the cat person. I am severely allergic to cats, so that's the only reason that I'm such a dog person. And I've got 2 dogs, so yeah, my iPhone lock screen right now is an adorable photo of my dog, and I love. In fact, I'll just show it real quick. It's got that depth effect with the time partially obscured there, with Henry's head taking over a bit of the time. So really fun feature there. But the last thing in the new watchOS 9 is that there are just some more colors and color options, colors and gradients available for the modular compact, the modular, and the extra large watch faces. So just some more options to kind of add color to those faces. And I think that this is the first time that we've seen such bright colors as backgrounds on these faces. So we've always been able to tint kind of the actual the time and the different complications, but to have that background tinting is really interesting to me.
My theory is because the Series 7 pushed the bezels out even further, or virtually no bezels now, that they can go more to the edge with those background colors. Because like the first watch and like even like the Series 3 and all that stuff, there's still quite a big bezel. So developers were told, hey, push all of your objects to the edge. Because it's a black OLED screen and your background will be black, it'll look like it's not at the edge, but it was at the edge. So I think that's why we're starting to get those kind of colors now. So that's cool. Still no custom watch face option though.
Yeah.
Don't think that's happening.
I don't think it's happening either. I think that Apple is too protective of their battery life for now. And I'm hopeful that there is some future where they've figured out a way to offer this, because think about the complications coming to iPhone by way of the new widget functionality with that live activity option and all that kind of magic that's going to be going on in the next version of iOS. And then consider how that could possibly come to watchOS as a watch face API. So I think there's a future where this could happen. It's just right now, Apple hasn't quite nailed it in a way that you're not going to be worried about battery drain. And also perhaps it has some concern about submissions. I don't know about that part, because everybody and their uncle could submit sticker packs at one point. Still can. And that was a big thing. So it would be cool if people could make watch faces on their iPad using Swift Playgrounds, and then be able to make those available to folks if they want to use them.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I guess they would still need to be submitted so that you don't get faces that, are not nice or something. I don't know. I don't know what the concern is, but
there would also be the copyright issue. Like you'd submit them and make sure that, it's not a Rolex watch face, or, there's not a Star Wars character. So I'm sure they had that with the sticker packs as well, because, you couldn't have somebody submit a Mickey Mouse sticker pack that wasn't Disney.
Right. That makes sense. All right. Moving right along, we've got AFib History as a new option. This is a set of features that can basically, for folks who have a history of atrial fibrillation, they will be able to keep track of the times when their heart is showing AFib, meaning that when their heart is in this arrhythmia, a rhythm of the heart that is not clinically typical, then you can kind of be aware of when that's happening and sort of look at how sleep, exercise, and other things might be impacting your AFib. And so it's just more quantified self stuff that makes this work so much better, and make sure that you are aware of your own heart and heart health. There are also some new features in family setup. So this was kind of a wide sweeping feature for iOS and watchOS, where you are able to set up a child's phone, or in this case, watch, and have it be exactly how you want it. But do you want to tell us about the podcasts feature? This is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, I didn't realize this wasn't available until they said it in the keynote. But if you have a device set up in Family Share and it's, a watch dedicated to kids, they didn't have access to the podcast app. Now they will. So they can, pair AirPods to their Apple Watch and listen to podcasts. I highly recommend iOS Today. And that way you can kind of kids can, hey, when I was in high school, I was listening to Mac Power Users. So kids, they like the tech podcasts. Wow, I just sounded like I was 80 there. But hey,
kids.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then kids have access to other stuff now too. So they can, parents can give them access to all the home features, so they can control lights or HomePods and do playback for that stuff. And now they also can give them access to keys. So you can do digital keys for your home, hotel. I kind of wonder, can you give kids keys to the car? Because you remember a couple years ago, they announced the car keys in the Wallet app. I wonder, can you give keys access to the BMW?
Because if a kid's 16, then yeah, that would be legal to do.
Yeah,
so,
and that's what I'm wondering is do they have to legally be 16 or something? Because I got my driver's permit when I was 15, so I was able to drive before. So what is the Could a kid get a hold of their parents' phone and then give them a 13-year-old kid get a hold of their parents' phone and give themselves access to the BMW and have a Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's one of the things I remember. Former colleague of mine, Serenity Caldwell, who now works at Apple, she had created a kid's account on her Apple ID for the sake of being able to test a bunch of different features. And for the longest time, she was unable to remove that fake kid from her account. It just stayed and she couldn't figure out a way to delete it. So I have never gone the way of, I've created a fake account that I use that's an adult on my Apple ID, like the family, so that I can test features. But after her experience, I was like, no, I'm not putting a kid on mine, some fake kid to test those out. So hopefully there's some developer out there who is testing that out in the betas so we can know what goes on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I don't have the BMW that lets you use the car key thing. So
that's
the other part too. Yeah,
it's a very small group that actually fits into what we need there.
Exactly.
Apple, of course, also announced a bunch of accessibility features. Some of these they had pre-announced. One of them is a really cool feature that's called double pinch to start a workout or take a photo. And what this does is it uses your wrist and wrist movements to interact with the Apple Watch. So this watch has a bunch of LED lights on the back and sensors that it uses to determine your your oxygen saturation, to in the case of the actual sort of electronic contacts that are on the back of it, it is being used to measure ECG, electrocardiogram. And so all of these different things, and the built-in accelerometer and gyroscope and all of the different sensors can be used to notice when you're doing certain movements with your wrist. And they showed originally grabbing with a fist versus pinching with fingers, and how the watch is able to tell the difference between those and then be able to perform an action. So in this case, it will start a workout or take a photo. But there's also a cool new feature. I was trying to make use of it earlier so I could show off the watch faces in motion on my iPhone. But I think it doesn't work because my phone is currently set up to work with Ecamm Live. And so the sort of built-in AirPlay or screenplay functionality is being used at the moment, because there's a new feature in accessibility called Apple Watch mirroring. And what this does is it lets you use your iPhone to control your Apple Watch. It will actually show your your Apple Watch's screen on your iPhone, and you can do a bunch of different things on the iPhone with, and then have that actually work on the Apple Watch. So in this way, you're streaming your Apple Watch to your iPhone, and you can use those assistive features that the iPhone can do because it's a powerful machine with more battery life and all of that. So you can actually use switch control and voice control with the Apple Watch right there from your iPhone. A really neat feature that like I said, I was going to show for the sake of being able to just show my screen. I'm kind of looking forward to it for that, because anytime we've had an Apple Watch episode in the past with apps and things, I've always had to put up another camera that is, perfectly placed and zoomed in and all that kind of stuff so I could show my wrist. So I'm looking forward to this future where I don't have to do that anymore.
Apple Watch, filming the Apple Watch is the hardest thing I have ever done in my career. It is like holding a 5-pound camera one-handed while trying to film the it is the hardest thing I've ever done. So yeah, that's a great accessibility feature for those that want and need it. But it's also nice for people that need to show off the watch as well, because it'll be kind of handy.
Absolutely. There are a few more features I'll briefly mention. In productivity, notifications are a little bit better. If you're using your watch, they just pop up as little banners at the top. And when your wrist is down, then they will pop up as full screen notifications. I have been liking those.
Me
apps
too.
running in the right, isn't that nice? And apps running in the background are prioritized over the rest of the apps in the dock. So that way you can make sure that you will get back to those easier. I remember setting up my dock originally and, sort of maintaining that tracking over time to make sure all of the apps that I use regularly are there. Some updates to the calendar app for the Apple Watch, and updates to the keyboard, as well as some new Apple Fitness Plus stuff, including trainer callouts. says at key moments in the workout, intensity metrics are called out and will appear on the screen for motivation so that you can see kind of what the training experience is like and sort of say, oh, I'm going to work harder this go, or I'm going to slow things down because I did an intense session, and some goals and other metrics that are available there as well. So lots of stuff in watchOS 9 that's coming that we can be excited about, plus loads of tiny features that will sort of make themselves known over time. Now that we have reached the end of the watchOS 9, What's New in watchOS 9 segment, it's time to move along and talk about the news. All right. It's time to talk about the news. The first thing, I saw this story over on TechCrunch, and I thought it was a really interesting one. The title is All the Things Apple Sherlocked at WWDC 2022. It's important to note that when they're talking about Sherlocking, it is a verb that is used to describe Apple in particular, creating a feature or announcing an app or bringing a new bit of hardware that is the same as a feature or piece of software that has already existed in a third-party way. So a good example of this is well, actually, let's just go through the list. I think that the first one is a good description of that. So continuity camera. The app that was Sherlocked, meaning that Apple came out with a first-party version of the third-party feature, is called Camo. And by the way, right now, I am talking to you with an iPhone 12 camera. Ooh, look at that refocus. Using the Camo app. It is a fantastic app. Right? Oh, you're using Camo right now too?
I have it plugged into an iPhone 13 mini. Yep, absolutely.
Nice. The Camo is fantastic. And I've used a little bit of continuity camera, and it's pretty cool. Continuity camera is a feature that Apple announced that will let you finally use your iPhone as a webcam. Now, the cool thing about what Apple's doing is that you can use it wired or wirelessly. And it is a simple as sort of bringing your phone close to your MacBook or your Mac, and then being able to choose it as the camera for that view. And it automatically enables center stage, which is Apple's feature for kind of realigning the screen so that you are in the middle of the screen. And also an interesting feature where it uses the ultra wide camera to be able to show what you're looking at, what you're talking about, and your desk view at the same time. Although I've heard in early tests of that, it's not quite what you'd expect and needs some stuff ironed out there. But yeah, I am not surprised that eventually got Sherlocked. But as I think a lot of sites have said, and I will continue to say, Camo still outpaces and outdoes continuity camera in many ways and with many different features that you have. And so I think there's still a long life ahead for Camo.
Yeah, I think I will still use Camo for something like this that's going to be recorded for posterity's sake. But if I'm just going to have like a web chat or a video call with people, doing the web, I aged like 50 years this morning apparently. So if I'm doing a video call or something, and it's just going to be like me talking to friends or catching up or something, I could see me just using continuity camera because it's easier. It's wireless. I could just throw it on there. And I truly think this helps make up for the not so great webcams on the Macs, just especially like I'm sitting right next to a studio display right now, and that has webcam built into it. And I decided to set up a tripod and an iPhone on my desk instead of use that webcam, which would have been easier, but I wanted to make sure this looked good. So I definitely think Camo is not down. The other thing is Camo also works with Android and Windows, and it's not like you can go from Android phone to Mac or iPhone to Windows. Like it's not the continuity camera is limited just iPhone to Mac.
Yep, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Some other features that I'll briefly mention here because we got to keep it moving along. Apple Pay Later. It is a feature that lets you sort of split up your payments into 4 equal payments over 6 weeks. There are other apps that do that or other services that do that. Visual Lookup, which is a feature that lets you kind of cut subjects out of photos very quickly. There are a few apps out there that have attempted to do this in different ways, and Apple's is okay. It could still use some work, but again, we're in beta right now. Medication tracking, we talked about Do is one app for this. There are also apps that are specific to medications, like an app called Pillbox and an app called My Therapy. I had never actually heard of either of those apps before.
Me neither.
Yeah, so that was news to me because I just use Do for all of that. Freeform, which is a collaboration app that isn't out yet. It's going to be coming out later this year. That is like so many apps on the App Store that are digital whiteboards that are collaborative. Sleep tracking, of course, with more data available with sleep tracking, that competes with all of the other sleep tracking apps out there. And that pretty much covers it. All right. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, I would also throw in there was a whole class of small utility apps that basically used to blur images so you can make them background. That's now Sherlocked because that's built right into the wallpaper settings.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Most of the time you were using those for wallpapers. And so those utility apps for a wallpaper. So yeah, it's already there now. I don't think that, of course, any individual app developer who's made an app that ends up getting Sherlocked is going to feel as if this experience is something that is very targeted. I think that the argument I would make is that in many cases, this is not a nefarious thing, but instead is an idea that, hey, we want our users to be able to have these features and they should just be built in versus having to go elsewhere to be able to find them. There are some features that are on that list that like anyone should be able to have these and have them right away. So I think that, it's worth celebrating that. I want those third-party apps to remain alive. And I think that they, in many cases, will still have plenty of users who are willing to stay with them and make use of those. Real quick, I'll mention that the EU, of course, has sort of officially said, look, we want to make it so that USB-C charging is universal. If you've got a device that is sort of a modern device that you're selling, you should be able to charge it with USB-C. And if it's big enough. So this basically excludes wearables from that EU ruling. And if they don't, then you got to include something that lets you use USB-C to charge. Now it seems like the US is hopping on board. There are some senators who are saying, look, we want to adopt a common charger as well. And it's likely that common charger would be USB-C, as that is the most widely available type of cord and charging device and port in terms of something that can sort of be universally standardized around. All right, let us move on because I'm very excited to say that even though Rosemary Orchard is not here, Shortcuts Corner is next. It's time for Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your Shortcuts Corner requests, and typically Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides a response. Rosemary is not here today, but Christopher Lawley is here, and I asked Christopher this morning, hey, do you think you'd be able to answer the Shortcuts Corner request? And we do have an answer. So, Christopher, I'll read the request, and then you can take it away. Alan writes in and says, I set up a shortcut to turn on and turn off my alarm system when I leave the house and when I return. Unfortunately, they require me to set them manually each time I leave the house and come back. I do not remember any option to eliminate the manual settings when I set the shortcut up originally. I thought in iOS 15 this feature was enabled. Is there any way I can get rid of this, or is that just a function of the location-based shortcut? And this is again from Alan. What can we do here? So it sounded like you're using personal automations to trigger the location. So when you leave and when you come home, the alarm system turns off or turns on. Unfortunately, location-based personal automations still require you to manually trigger them. In iOS 15, some personal automations allow you to turn off the manual ones, like time-based ones. So if you always left at 6 a.m., you could set it to turn on at 6:05, kind of give you a little bit of a window right there.
that you can do. It's not ideal, I know, but unfortunately, location-based personal automations cannot be automatically triggered. And I think the reason why, and I don't know this for sure, but the reason that I've heard through the grapevine is safety. They don't want people like, hey, every time this person leaves here, send this other person a ping on where it is and stuff like that. So I get it. I get why they don't do it. It's a bummer because I have a lot of really cool ideas that could, work on location-based stuff. But unfortunately, right now, you can't turn those off, or you can't have those run automatically in the background.
Drat. So no such luck. But again, understandable for the most part why this feature is. Why are you the way that you are? It is understandable why this feature is the way that it is. As much as we wish it wasn't that way. So, Alan, alas, that's just the way that these work right now. And when that changes, or if that changes, of course, we will be covering that so you are aware. All right, moving into feedback and questions. Daniel has written in, hi, Rosemary and Mike. Oh, let me cross that out. Hi, Strike Through Rosemary, Christopher, and Micah. I have an iPhone 12 that is running the latest version of iOS. I'm having a few weird problems. One, sometimes when I mute the phone with the mute switch, it will still ring. The volume of the ringtone is about half of the volume that I normally have it set at. When it happens, I have restarted the phone, but this doesn't fix it. Two, there are times when one of my contacts tries to text me and iMessage notifies them my phone is in Do Not Disturb mode, so they call me instead. However, my phone isn't in Do Not Disturb mode, and I verify this. The only time I use DND is when I'm at church or when I go to sleep at night. I have it set from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. If they go ahead and text me, I will not receive a notification that I received it. Both of these problems only happen occasionally and seem to stop on their own. Again, restarting doesn't help. Three, my phone is sometimes auto answering calls. It's happened 4 or 5 times, once in the previous version of iOS and the rest of the times in the latest version. Twice when I was wearing Bluetooth earbuds, and the rest of the time I wasn't wearing headphones. A couple of the calls were spam calls, but the others were contacts. The phone would start ringing and all of a sudden I could hear talking. The times I wasn't wearing headphones, it didn't answer in speaker mode. This is getting very frustrating, so any help would be appreciated. Thanks, Daniel. Daniel, this is an interesting thing. Number one and number two are two issues that I hear about a lot. In fact, just on the radio show, we had somebody call in on Saturday and ask Leo Laporte and myself about issue number two, I think it was issue number one, where they put on the mute switch, but their phone was still ringing. So there are some features that are built into iOS that allow certain contacts to bypass the Do Not Disturb mode. And so that is one thing that you're going to want to check and we'll include a link in the show notes for all of the settings with Do Not Disturb, because there's basically what's called emergency bypass. And with emergency bypass, those contacts get to ignore the mute switch and get to ignore Do Not Disturb and get to ignore all the things. And so it could be that is what's happening there, where it's still ringing even whenever you've got it on mute. As far as number two, the Do Not Disturb feature, this appears to be a problem that it was introduced when Apple added the ability to sync focus modes between devices. So if we launch the settings app, and my settings app will look a little bit different because it is running a beta, but most of the features are still in the same place. If we launch the settings app and we choose focus, you will see an option there that says share across devices. What you want to do is toggle that off and then toggle it back on again. And the reason why is because essentially what's happening is when you go into a focus mode like Do Not Disturb, then it sort of syncs with Apple's servers, the same one that uses iMessage, and it will then share that status to all of your different contacts. It will say that you are in Do Not Disturb mode and or in whatever mode it might happen to be, and then it will have that set up in that way. So in this functionality, you are probably having a sync error where there is a device that or not even a device necessarily, but on the server side of things, it thinks that you're still in this mode. So toggling that off and back on again will help to kind of jostle it and say, look, I don't want to be in Do Not Disturb. My partner actually had this issue ongoing where everyone he was texting, it would always show that he was in Do Not Disturb. And he's like, I'm not in Do Not Disturb. The other suggestion that I have for you is go to every single one of the devices that you have that's logged into your Apple ID account and make sure that Do Not Disturb or sleep or driving or whatever form of focus you have is not turned on that device. Turn it off on that device, because I've had an issue before where my Apple Watch had DND turned on, but it was not on my iPhone. And so it was still appearing as if I was in Do Not Disturb mode across different systems. So that's just something to be aware of, that sometimes it's just a matter of toggling that off and on to kind of kick the server and say, hey, I'm out of DND, but sometimes it's a matter of one of your devices somewhere is still reporting to the system that you are in Do Not Disturb mode. So if you use share across devices, make sure that's toggled on across all of your different devices when you decide to turn it off, so that way all of them get told I'm no longer in Do Not Disturb, because it could be that there's some iPad somewhere that's in Do Not Disturb that's then telling everything else, hey, he's still in Do Not Disturb. That's why you aren't being able to reach him. So check that out. And then as far as auto answering calls, there are some features in iOS, and I don't remember where they are. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Chris, but there is, I believe it's an accessibility feature that lets you automatically answer phone calls based on if you have Bluetooth headphones turned in. And what I'm thinking, Daniel, is that your phone may have still been registering that you had your Bluetooth headphones in. And because of that, then it was going ahead and auto answering the call when you were making use of it. But I'm checking through the settings right now.
I have it right here. It's accessibility, touch, and then scroll down to the bottom, second to the last option, call audio routing, and then there's auto answer. There's an option for automatic Bluetooth headset speakers, but there's an option in there that says auto answer calls, and just make sure that's off. And that's probably it right there.
Absolutely. So yes, that is a really good thing. And then in that way, you're also making sure that it is also not going to turn that on whenever, you just have Bluetooth headphones, or when it thinks that you might have Bluetooth headphones in. So Daniel, I hope that helps. That was quite a bit of info to take in, but again, we'll include some links in the show notes to help you out with that. And then there is one more that we'll cover today from, I'm going to pronounce it Whale. Whale writes in, hi, I'm newish to iPhone and I'm wondering what's the best way to unlock my phone. Let's say you're in an app and you lock the screen, but when you want to unlock it, there's someone next to you and you don't want them to see that app open, like say a game at work. Oh, sorry. Hey, bosses who are watching this or listening, just plug your ears for a second or turn around, count down from 5, and then you can come back. Okay, they're gone. Now I can say, like a game at work, like playing a game at work. Okay, everybody's back. What is the best way to go about that? What I do is I go to the this is still Whale, not me. What I do is I go to the camera app on the lock screen and then unlock. Is there a more elegant way to go about this? Honestly, I had never even heard of anyone doing this in the first place. So this is kind of like, this suggestion is really interesting to me, that you could just have the camera be the way to do that. Do you know of any other way to like obscure what you're looking at on the phone?
So I'm the perfect person to ask this question to, because I worked in corporate America for almost 10 years and have left, and now I'm self-employed. So I don't mind giving away any of my secrets anymore, because I am totally fine sticking it to corporate America. I'm just quick on the draw, and you got to practice this. So you take your iPhone and you unlock it, but as it's unlocking, you flick up again from the bottom. If you have a home button one, you can just double tap and it'll go into the multitasking deal. But like, you just got to be quick and practice it a few times. But if you're just quick on the draw, they won't see it. It'll just, because when apps close, they go into a suspended state, and a lot of times they have just like a static image, and like it's just nothing. Like, oh well, like you didn't really see anything. So I'm just quick on the flick. But the camera app idea, that's actually good too. Like, oh, oops, I opened the camera. Let me just go home, and that's smart too.
Yeah, I like that idea. I guess the one thing I would worry about in any situation is that the locking the screen could, if you're playing a high performance game, it could knock it out of memory, and so you may end up, not leaving off where you were, and that's going to be the case, Whale, no matter what. Just by locking the screen in general, you risk that. So there's nothing to really solve for that, but I like that flick idea, or even, as you said, go into the camera. I don't think there's a more elegant way to do it.
I can't think of anything. Maybe you could, I wonder if you had a shortcut you could put I would have to test this. I literally just thought of this, but you could make a shortcut that says uses the go to home screen action, put the shortcuts widget in the today view so you can swipe over and then hit that. That might work. But I haven't tested that. That could theoretically work.
Yeah. You'll have to give that a go and let us know, Whale. All right. And with that, it is time for App Caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our heads to honor our app or gadget picks of the week. These are the apps or gadgets we are using that we want to share with all of you and that we want to celebrate by wearing caps atop our heads. As is usual, we will start by having Christopher describe the cap atop his head for our listeners out there, and then tell us about your app cap. Christopher, take it away.
When Rosemary mentioned this part, I was like, I have the perfect hat for this. So at WWDC this year, I got to attend the keynote in person. I was one of the few lucky media people. I was very excited to go. But Apple gave everyone a hat. And it might be kind of hard to see on video, so let me see if I can tilt down. Nice. There is a Swift emblem right here. Swift is one of the programming languages iOS, watchOS, iPadOS, macOS apps is written in. So it's like, this is the perfect hat for this. So Swift hat. Swift there. It's black on black, so it's kind of hard to see. But WWDC hat. Perfect.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good. So along with the celebration of WWDC, tell us about your app cap.
Yeah, so I tried to figure out like an app, one that maybe Rosemary hasn't covered or Mikah hasn't covered, something that was kind of unique to me. And I came up with Lumafusion. For about 4 years, when I like Mikah said at the top of the show, I'm a YouTuber. I've been doing YouTube for a little over 5 years now. And for 4 years, I edited all of my videos from Lumafusion on my iPad. It is a multi-track video editor. It started off by supporting 3 video tracks and 3 audio tracks, and now I believe it's up to 6 video tracks and 6 audio tracks. You could do all sorts of different things like chroma key, green screen, audio effects, visual effects, titles, ripple edits, all sorts of really cool stuff. And it's only $30, which may sound like a lot for an iPad app or an iPhone app. But when you kind of get into the realm of multi-track video editors, you're typically looking at $300. Like that's what Final Cut costs. Or if you go into something like Avid or Premiere, you're going to be looking at subscriptions and all sorts of licensing things. So for $30, you get a pretty advanced video editor. Now, I had some issues with it. If you've followed my YouTube channel in the past, I had some issues with it because I pushed it a little too far than what the app and what iPadOS at the time could handle. But what's really exciting is with iPadOS 16, apps are now able to use up to 16 gigs of memory, and there is now virtual memory swap, meaning it can use empty storage space and basically convert that into RAM. So with that, I've been testing Lumafusion again, and all the issues that I had in the past seem to be solved by this. So I'm very excited to kind of give this a go again. I still have the beta on my iPad, beta 1 on the iPad, so I'm not using it as my production machine right now, but I am very excited as bugs start to smooth out, system bugs. I'm definitely going to use it more and more, but I'm very excited to see that like the performance of the iPad has been unlocked and that this app can really take advantage of it. Like I said, I used it for 4 years. I edited like 200 something videos with it. Yeah, it's very good if you're looking for even just a casual video editor. If you're just looking to splice some clips together, it does a really good job at like taking care of a lot of the settings automatically. So you don't need to know if your clips are 10-bit or 8-bit or 422 or 420 or 4K or 1080p or HEVC or MPEG-4. Like you don't need to know any of that. It takes care of all that. But if you do know that, you can really get into the settings and tweak it to make it what you want it to be. So I highly recommend it as a video editor.
Nice. That is a really good tip, a really good app worth checking out. I think I have it on my iPad as well. I haven't done a whole lot of video editing as of late, but I really do like editing on the iPad versus I was editing on my Intel Mac, and that thing sometimes just got so hot and chugged along.
That's a heater.
Something really nice about editing on the iPad, and there's that smoothness of kind of working with the footage. The app that the cap atop my head is a hat from the Red Hat conference. One of our former colleagues went, or I think it was her husband who went to the Red Hat conference, and he brought back two of these Red Hat caps, one for me and one for Leo. And so, yes, that's what I'm wearing today. It's a bright red cap that says Red Hat on the side. And the app that I want to talk about is called LAN Drop, capital L, capital A, capital N, drop. And the reason I want to talk about this is actually two reasons. One, because it's awesome, but two, because we got a call on the radio show last Saturday for someone who used to use an app where they were able to essentially airdrop between their iOS device and their Windows machine. And then that app went away. And so they were looking for something. And there is a free and open source app called LAN Drop that will let you achieve file sharing super simply between a Mac, a PC, an iPhone, an Android. It's on Linux. It's everywhere. So very awesome stuff. And I'll show you. I have here, this is my Windows machine, Elvis, and this is just a folder within the app, a folder on the desktop of it. And I have LAN Drop open on my iPhone. And in fact, I think I can show you that as well. Let me see if I can't just go ahead and add that somewhere. There it is, very small. So let me make this bigger. And so now you can kind of see this is my iPhone here, and I've got some different files. And so what I will do is just choose this top file and choose open. And then you'll see that it says, oops, my Windows machine went to sleep. It says that file is selected. The name of this device is iPhone, and it shows down here the devices that I can actually send to. I want to send to Elvis, which is the name of this Windows machine. And so I'll tap on that, and then it's going to send it. But you'll see that it pops up a code 556251, and I need to confirm that on the Windows machine. And it shows the same code 556251. I choose yes. And then boom, it's already sent the text file. It's done. It's there. That little loading bar will disappear. I could do the same. I'll hide the iPhone now just so you can see the Windows machine. I could do the same from the Windows machine to my iPhone by choosing LAN Drop and right-clicking on it and choose Send Files. I will drag this image here to that, and then I will choose Send. And you'll see that iPhone is shown here. If I had other ones popped up, I could get to those as well. I'll choose send. And then it says on my iPhone, receiving. And if we've got codes again, and I say, yes, I want to receive that file. And then it will pop open that file for me and automatically add it to a section of the app called Files. You'll see that that's a little bit slower going from the Windows machine over. And now I've got, what I love is that on my iPhone, I've got an option here that says, do you want to allow access to all of these photos? That means that LAN Drop is smart enough to know that this is a photo and automatically add it to my photo library, as opposed to adding it to, it has a temporary storage space that are for files so that you can properly save them out to where you want to. So this will just automatically add that photo to my photo library. And again, this is between a Windows machine and an iPhone, where in the past I would either have to use the weird Bluetooth sharing that is garbage, where you have to like go into a bunch of settings and set it up, or I would use OneDrive, which I don't use regularly, as a way to move files in between these two places. With this, I've got a simple app where I can get to the files that I want to and be able to share those back in no time at all, in no time flat. And this works, as I said, it's cross-platform across so many different devices. It's free and open source. It's incredible. Land drop for anyone who's trying to share files between different devices on their own network. This cross-platform app is just so amazing. And yes, no worries about compression. So if you're uploading photos and videos, it's not going to compress them before it sends them or anything like that. It's just going to send them right out and be just as you expect them to be, the OG files. So check out Landdrop. It's it's free, so absolutely it's worth it to get and be able to share files between your different devices. With that, we have reached the end of this episode of iOS Today. You can head to, or you can email us at iostoday@twit.tv. That's where you go if you want to share feedback, if you have questions, if you have Shortcuts Corner requests. That's the best way to get them to us. You can also tweet at us if you'd like, but honestly, iOS Today at twit.tv, that's your go-to spot. If you would like to tune in and watch the show live, we do record the show live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We get lots of fun folks tuning in and chatting with us in the IRC and also on the Discord, which I'll talk about in a second. But it is an awesome way to watch the show, twit.tv/live, where we have all the different places we're live on YouTube, on Twitch, etc. And we think that the best way to get the show, even though if you want to watch it live, see all the flubs and blubs we make, the best way to get the show is by getting the final package, which you can do by going to twit.tv/iOS, where you'll see links to subscribe to audio or video. You just click subscribe to audio or subscribe to video. You choose Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, basically all those different places. We try to be where you are, and you can get the show that way. And I'll briefly mention Club Twit. I did talk about that Discord there for a second. If you would like to support our show directly, then we have a way for you to do that. You go to twit.tv/clubtwit, and for $7 a month, you can be a member of Club Twit. What does that get you? Well, instead of listening to ads as the way to pay for the content, you are paying for the content directly, so you get a complete ad-free experience. That means that you'll get all of the shows ad-free. You'll also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, before the show, after the show, behind the scenes, all sorts of fun stuff, and access to the Club Twit Discord. That is the place where you can go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. Rosemary Orchard is one of the most active people in the Club Twit Discord, so it's a great place to go to hang out with her and get questions answered. Twit.tv/clubtwit to support our shows and make it possible for us to do fun stuff. We've got a few announcements coming up for new things that are happening that I can't talk about just yet, but Club Twit is making them possible. And now it is time for Christopher Lawley to tell us where folks can go to find you online.
Yes, if you're interested in iPad apps, productivity, shortcut stuff, you can find me on YouTube at Christopher Lawley. That's Lawley. It's the one that talks about the iPad, not the folk singer. Actually, I don't know if he's still on there, but there literally was a Christopher Lawley, same spelling, on YouTube for the longest time.
Oh, wow.
It was also a folk singer. So that's been my ongoing joke for years now, and I should probably stop it. But yeah, you can see me there, or if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm Chris_Lawley. My website has links to everything. That's the untitled.site. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, so much for joining us today. I just appreciate it so much that you took the time out to be here. Fantastic show. Really loved having you. We'll definitely have you back on in the future. And until next time, I hope all of you enjoyed today's show, that you found out what you can expect in watchOS 9. Very excited for that. I and Rosemary will see you for the next episode of iOS Today. Goodbye.
Bye.
The world is changing rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that it's hard to keep up. That's why Mikah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, talk with the people making and breaking the tech news on Tech News Weekly every Thursday. They know these stories better than anyone, so why not get them to talk about it in their own words? Subscribe to Tech News Weekly and you won't miss a beat every Thursday at twit.tv.